Hey everyone, so we are building the clone of n8n. By the end of this video, you'll be able to build this and you'll be exactly at this frame at the end of this video. So we have this bunch of nodes like trigger, text generation, content analyzer, chatbot, executor, whatnot. Some action nodes, some logical nodes. You can drag and drop these nodes out here like this, if else node, conditional statement and all, delay statement like 5-second delay, then text generation, ask a prompt, asking people to subscribe. There we go. We ask people to subscribe. Content analyzer, you analyze this content by, we analyze the content which was given by this AI text generator and we analyze that. So it's not just any analyzer, it is analyzing the content given by the previous node. And then the final thing is a chatbot, which is basically ask your audience to subscribe to YouTube and it gives me the answer. So we have AI nodes, just like n8n, we have a full-fledged configuration system. Do watch the video, we'll discuss this in a very detailed sort of way. But yeah, this is what we'll be building soon, and let me execute it for good luck and let's start the video. And let me give you what n8n is now. This n8n is similar. You have a trigger point and then you have couple of nodes or basically agent or tools. You can use AI and create a custom workflow. Something similar I just did and showed you. That is something we'll be building in this video. Let's talk a little bit about the tech which we are using in this one, Next.js. Then we'll have Tailwind for UI. Then we'll have TypeScript, obviously. Then we'll have React Flow for Canvas. And for state management and all, I'll just check what we'll have on the go. But yeah, that's it. And yeah, Azure OpenAI for AI, but you are quite free to use any of your own. You can use Gemini or any other, whichever you like. Okay, so let's start by creating our next app. Create latest Tailwind TypeScript app. We need to give it the name, which can be n8n tutorial. Yep. ESLint, React compiler, no. src directory, no. Webpack, import alias, no. While it installs, let's talk a little bit about how we can build this app. So this is a visual canvas. We use this React Flow for it. So this is a node-based UI in React. You can create different nodes, connect them in React, and this is what we can use for that. And like individual nodes will have their own logic. There'll be a logic to execute them. There'll be a logic to pass data amongst them. But yeah, overall it sounds a little complicated, but it can be pretty simple app. Anyways, we have the code. Let's go into it. Let's start our terminal up here. Sorry, our editor up here. We have our app directory. We have our pages. Let's try running this. npm run dev. So yeah, we have our Next.js project. Okay, so we have our Next.js project up here ready. Let's open up another terminal and install some dependencies. So first we'll need npm install React Flow. This will give us the drag and drop node functionality, take care of the positioning and everything. We'll install Zustand. I don't know, I butchered the name. This is our state management system. This is not as powerful as Redux, but it'll just do things for us. Like it'll handle our workflow nicely. Then we'll have npm install lucid React. This is for the beautiful icons and the UI. Then we'll install AI, OpenAI, and Zod for AI integration and simple data validation. There's a fly running there. Okay, so we have everything there. Now let's finalize the project structure, I guess, right? So we have our app project, app folder. We have our page.tsx file up here. Okay, now how the app structure would be. In app, we would need a folder called API, which will handle all the APIs for us. And then in API, we'll have a, my bad, not this. In API, we'll have a new folder AI, and then we'll have a folder execute, right? So we have two subfolders there. Now what we need to have is a folder outside component. Now inside component, we need some UI components, let's say some buttons, some links or something like that. So made a couple of folders. We'll populate this soon enough. I think we'll have some buttons, yeah, for some sidebars and all. So there's that. And I also need another folder which is library. So inside this library, I'll keep some common components like some utility function, the store, and something like that, right? So this is my folder structure. Let's start by creating the types folder, types.ts inside this. Let me close off the terminals. Let me just close off this, close off the terminal, close off the AI agent. Now this will be a good screen size for you guys to watch. So we'll start by defining the types. We'll define all the types that we'll support. We'll put the trigger types like webhook or schedule, and then the AI nodes like text generation or content analyzer. We'll keep all of that. So we'll import node and edge from React Flow, and we'll export type node type. So there are multiple node types that I want to have. So we'll keep the first node as webhook, then we'll keep schedule. So we'll keep a few of them right now, like AI text generation generator. Then we'll have AI analyzer. So let's keep 4 for now. Actually, we should not have the comma here. Otherwise, okay, and let's put 4 because this is not a JSON. This can be any of those. So this is webhook, schedule, AI, and analyzer, right? So any of those can be this type. Then we'll export interface node data. Side node data will have a label as string. Okay, so for the next field we have the type, which is node type, and then we have our config, which will be this record string any, and then we have our output, which will be basically any, and then we have our is executing, which can be optional as well, is boolean, and then we have our error, which is obviously a string. So basically couple of fields out here. We can have the type of node. Is it a scheduler node? Is it a type of like AI text generator node? Then we have some configuration, the parameters that you want to pass to that node, the output that you want to get from that node. Label is basically the name or something. Is executing is when it is executing, we want a spinner to be there. So for that is executing. And error, when there is an error, we want to populate the error out there, right? So all of this will be considered as a node data. And then we need some sort of this workflow node as well. So what we want to do is workflow node, which will extend our node. But we now this workflow node is basically the node itself, but we are extending the node that we are importing from React Flow. That means we can have our custom properties added up here. For right now, we just want to add data as node data as the custom property and nothing else. So that's it for now for workflow node and everything. We'll come back to this file later when we have to implement other things. One thing that we want to create now is the environment variables. So what I'll do is I'll create a .env file. This will contain the environment variable for our AI. And these are the basic placeholders that you need to replace. So for Azure OpenAI, you need to replace the endpoint, the deployment ID, and OpenAI key. If your AI of preference is something else, let's say Gemini, in that you don't need the endpoint, you don't need the deployment ID, you just need the API key. So this would be a small figuring out from your side, whichever AI you are using. Put the config in the environment file. I'll replace this with the actual config and not just the placeholders out there. Also make sure when you have the git ignore up here that contains your .env so that your env file does not get pushed into the repository. So that's it for the basic setup. Now we'll create the visual canvas and we'll try to create our first draggable nodes. So we'll use the React Flow library for that. So React Flow is a library for building this node based editors. It gives you nodes, edges, and the ability to drag the nodes connected with the edges. Until now, I'm pretty sure you know like what it does. So won't go in deep, but let's go and first create a store inside the lib. So this will be store.ts. Now this is where we will import our Zustand from Zustand because we need to keep a state in our system which will contain the nodes and the workflow. So we'll create a new constant, use workflow store, and we'll create a workflow flow state, and we'll use set and get up here, right? Now we need to import this workflow state from types. So if we check the types, we need to create a new here. So export interface workflow state and what to have inside this. Now workflow state, what all do we need? We need nodes, which will be workflow node array. Then we need edges, which would be workflow edge array. But since we don't have edge, we can just create one here, interface workflow edge extends edge. That's it. We don't need any custom properties, so we can just put it right here, right? Or we could have just exported the edge also, but maybe in future we need to customize it, put arrows on it or something. So in that case, we might have to export it. So let's keep the framework there. Depends. Another method is add node. So that will be node workflow node and going with void. Then we need to update node as well. So that again will be node workflow. Wait, that will need the ID string. So every node would have this ID that might be label, that might be something else. We need, when we are updating our node, we need that, right? So the function will be taking the ID and the data, which will be like this partial of node data. So you can have partial node data and then it will return void. Now, if you're not understanding what this thing is, this is we are defining the type or interface for TypeScript. So if it was JavaScript, we could have directly done the like the operations, and we don't have to define the type. But now here, since this is a state in TypeScript, we have to define, like for updating, what are the parameters that our function will take. This is us defining the update node function parameters. This is our us defining the add node parameters. So in add node, we will get a node, we will add that node. Now the implementation is not here because this is an interface, but since it is a TypeScript code, we have to define the method. So I'm just going with the cadence of that. Delete node. So what does one need in a delete API? You take an ID, take string, and you delete, right? So that's pretty much it. And let's do edge also. Add edge. That will be edge of workflow edge void. Then you will have delete edge, give it ID of string, and that will delete, right? And set edge, then give it edges workflow edge, Let me set it to void. Then set nodes, give it nodes as workflow node array, should be able to set it, and then clear workflow. This is the last method that we need. It should be able to clear, basically empty out all the arrays and everything. So yeah, I think the implementation is fair. Now we need to import this workflow state here. So what we can do is, so we can do import workflow state from types, right? Now this import is successful up here. Now in here, we, since the state is already defined, we need the nodes array, and then we'll need the edges array, and then we have to define the functions whichever we gave in the type, right? Such as update node, right? This function we wrote there, id string, then data as partial workflow node, and having the data, but we did not write an implementation there. So here we need to write the implementation, which is set state Now, where is this set coming from? Let me show you this. So if we go up Zustand documentation, let me zoom it out a bit as well. So how does state management work in Zustand? If you go to guides, so see, every time you use a create method, you get a setter and a get. So set is basically to set the state of this particular thing, and get is obviously to get that particular state of this. So this is the basic of Zustand, and Zustand handles the re-rendering automatically, so it is much simpler than Redux as well. You can check it out in the documentation as well, how it actually works and what are the different methods available, because it's a very comprehensive guide, and for our code purposes we don't need as much. So I'll just leave it here. It is quite self-explanatory that you give it a state and you are able to set the state. Now node, it would be nodes would be state nodes dot map. So we will spread out our node, and then we are going to do if node dot id is equals to id, then in that case we'll do node data will become node dot data comma data. So whatever is the new column from here, we updated with that. So quite simple, I guess. Instead of this, we need to create a state. So this, and we do node. Yeah, that works. You can remove this one. We can keep it, we can remove it, it's fine. So node state dot nodes dot map, and the node that we have, if node id is equal to id, then we take the node, and the data, we create data and we replace the data with node, like all the existing field plus this data fields. So we do that, or we just return back our initial node. So this is okay. Delete node. In that case, we'll just need an id of string. Here we'll set the state as node state dot node dot filter if node dot id is not equals to id. If it is not equal to id, we don't replace it. If it is equal to id, we replace it. That's it. And edges will check. So state dot edges dot filter, and if here edge, so edge dot source is not equal to id, and edge dot target is not equal to ID. So in that case, we just remove it. So if it is not equal to ID, in that case, we let it be. Otherwise, we remove that. So I think that sounds good. Actually, one bracket I left, which is up here, and then going up till here. Yeah. Now I think it's fine. Yep. Another method that we had was update edge delete node. Sorry, update node done, delete node, add node. Let's add for add node or add edge. Let's do first. So add edge. So we'll take as edge, which is workflow edge. Now workflow edge we need to import from here. Workflow edge, right? And for workflow edge, we'll do is set state. Oops, set state goes till here, and we do edge add react flow edge as connection state dot edges. So we need to import a couple of stuff. So we need to import add edge as add react flow edge, and we need to import connections from react flow. So yeah, here we did add the edge, and now what we need to do is create something for delete edge. Now it is also gonna be quite straightforward. You give it a string ID, and then you go and do set state, and then you go up here, create a new filter edges state dot edge filter out. You filter out this edge from here. So if edge of ID is not equal to ID, so those are selected, others are not. Yeah, so pretty simple, like nothing much to this. So add edge, delete edge is done. Have we done the add node? Okay, add node is remaining. We'll do that. So let's, after delete edge, let's do set nodes, which is basically nodes workflow node array. Then we have up here as set nodes, right? Set edges workflow edge. Then we have up here set edges, right? Now we have clear workflow, which will be here, and set nodes empty and edges also empty. Fair enough. Okay, now we had our add node left. So let's do our add node up here, add node, which will be node workflow node. Then we have our set state as here, and nodes, and then whatever we have already state dot node, we add our node in that. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It is saying edges comma expected. Why is that? Because we didn't give it a state. Is it because of that? Yeah, it's because of that. We didn't give it enough. Yep. Because all of these are state variables, so we need to give it an extra bracket. So I added an extra bracket here so that we know that we are like exporting out an object. So all of these will be one method in that, so you need to put comma out here. So comma, we have comma, and then there's. Okay, so once we are done with the store, sort of, let's start a little bit into changing the main UI of our app. So in here we do require the main screen, but let's import some things out, right? So we will need some state elements like up here constant. We need some nodes, edges, then add node, add edge, and all the store functions that we created. Update nodes, set edges, and all of them will be coming from use workflow state. And this use workflow state we have to import, and we'll import it from here. So actually this is use workflow store, and it's gonna be coming from import use workflow store from read slash library nodes edges add node add edge. Okay, this looks good. And then we need a couple of functions as well, which is like constant on nodes change, and then we'll do use node state. Also with this use node state, this is a React flow hook, so we need to import use node state from React flow. And then we also, since we are using hooks, we need to tell it use client. So that this is a client component, and another method will be comma on edges change, which will be use edges state, and another hook from React flow. So use edges state, right? So a couple of hooks, and then so there's a possibility when we select a particular component, when a component it is executing, when we have a sort of instance of React flow, right? So two hooks would be, one would be is executing. So is executing set is executing, and this we can do our normal use state, which is React, and we can just do we can have it boolean. So initially it can be false, and later on we can set the real value. Another one will be selected node ID, set selected node ID. This can be used state, and then string, or can be null as well if nothing is selected, and we'll initialize it by null. So yep, these two are there. Use state from React. So one thing that we need to import is basically the use state from React, because we are using that. So here comes our use state. So React flow actually gives us these hooks to maintain the inner state and the changes. So this is for that. So they handle whenever the user picks up or like changes any data on the page. So let's start by creating the basic div component, and then let's run the app and check how is it doing. So div tag up here, let's give it some class name of, let's give it flex, then h screen w screen, and inside it let's give it a React flow. And now I see that we'll have to import this. I'll import it up from here, React flow. So we got the React flow. Now let's do, this will take some parameters. It will take parameters like nodes, which are nodes. Then it will take edges, which are edges. Then it will take on node change, which will be on node change, and on edge change, which will be on edge change, right? And then it will need some background. So for background, we can import that as well from here. So this will take background, and then it will also take controls, and it will also take mini map, so that we have that small map sort of thing telling us like what and where the nodes are. So we'll add it here. It will be background, then it will be controls, then it will be minimap. Right. Okay, I think this works. Let's run it once and check. So npm run dev, open up our terminal, localhost 3000. Let's see. Yeah, sounds like it looks good. It's a beginning. We have a background ready, we have our nodes and already. Now obviously we can't add the node right now because we haven't created the sidebar yet, but this is a good start. Okay, so with that in place, let's the next step would be getting this nodes ready. So from inside this library, let's create our node component, which will be node definitions.ts, right? So let's create this. Let's give our node some definition, and then let's start by creating that. So constant node definitions. This can have webhook, which will have type as webhook, right? The label that it will have is webhook trigger. The description it will have is trigger workflow when receiving HTTP request. Then the category will have is trigger. Triggers are basically the node which starts the flow. So this is basically a trigger for the flow. So icon will have webhook, but this icon will have to import. So I'll write it right now, but before before actually running it, I'll import it out. So this is my webhook type of node. Now, since I have imported this, let's import our webhook from Lucid React. So that's our one node definition. Actually, let's create an interface also. Interface of node definitions, so that we have the type and all there. Label string, description will be string, category will be either it will be a trigger or a AI, or it will be action, or it will be logic, right? Icon can be any, then color can be string, default config can be record of string and any, and config fields can be this config field and array of that. Let's create the import interface of config field as well. So name of string, label will be string, then we have type as text or text area or select or number. Options can be value string and then label string. So there can be a bunch of options as well. Then we can have a placeholder, which is sort of not required. Then required can be boolean, then default value can be any. This works, type option placeholder required, and this config field will go up here. Right now, this node definition can take up a record, and this can be string comma node definition. So now we'll have a string up here, and the definitions would go a long way. There is a bunch of details left. So webhook inside, after the color, we need to give it default config. And the default config is basically the configuration that this thing should be having when we just open it. Like there should be something taking up the default. I think it is explanatory. The post endpoint that we were having, this is that. So this will take method as post. Now these are custom fields because if you check up here, config field, default config, sorry, the record is string and any. So since it is string and any, we can have any string here. So method is a custom key, right? We could have method, we could have a method 2 as well, 3 as well up here, right? That does not make any difference. So but it's just that we have to reference the same when we are creating our node. So path can be webhook, right? And then we can have our config fields, which will be config field is array. So we'll have array up here, name, method, label can be HTTP method. These are config fields. So type can be select, then options can go from value of, let's give it two options, get, label, get. Actually give it a couple more. Let's give it up here post, and let's give it this also post, give it patch, and let's give it as well patch, right? So comma is remaining, comma. Yep, options done. Default value is supposedly post, right? So this is one config, one app are done. So I think this should be good for our trial. In config fields, this is the first label and all, and if there are anything else, we can add that later. So I think this is good. More hooks we can add by giving different name up here. So that would be pretty easy. Let's try out one first, and then we can go on to the next ones. Now let's create some components because we'll need them. So let's create a sidebar.tsx. Now I might stop recordings in between for a while. I'll create this stuff up. I'll come back here and maybe I'll write every part of CSS, or maybe I'll just walk through the code, and you guys can check that on the GitHub repo that I'm having, because CSS actually takes a little bit of time, and the classes you can't just go in a flow state. Backend is basically you can go in a flow state, CSS you can't. So I mean, let's see how it goes. Use client, import. Obviously I need to import certain things, which I'll do here from React, and then yeah, export default function sidebar, and then we'll take couple of probes, and then which will be of type sidebar probes, and then we'll open up our method. Let's think about probes. Probes can interface sidebar probes. So what all do we need in a sidebar? We need a function which will execute it. So on execute, so that will be one void and is executing, so boolean. So both are UI component. When it is executing, we have to call a function which will be injected into it. And then if it is executing, we want a different interface. We don't want on click button to work and things like that. So we can do that. So we need on execute to come up from here and is executing to come from here, right? So that will be our sidebar. Now there are a couple of functions that we need. So first function is on drag start. So when someone is dragging this particular button from sidebar till the main screen, we want certain things to happen, right? So for that, we'll do React drag event. Node type is string. Then we'll do event dot data transfer dot set data. So this will data transfer and it will go application dot react flow, and this will go to node side, right? So this will tell react flow that okay, this node is getting added, so take care of that. And event dot data transfer dot effect allowed equal to move. This is on drag start. Give it some categories. This can be trigger, will be trigger nodes. AI can be AI nodes. What else would we have? We'll have actions. So action nodes. Then we'll have certain logic, which will be logic nodes. Right, we'll have certain nodes up here, constant group nodes. This is for the grouping of nodes, so we'll do that. So we can do object dot values node definitions. Now node definitions has to come from here, so it will import node definitions and node definitions from at the rate lib slash node definitions, right? So that is one dot reduce node if node dot category cc node dot category equals to null. Node dot category node. And here we can have this before node definitions. This is the grouping of our node, so that is fine. Now let's create our UI components. So div, we need some div up here, and we need to plug in these data things. One thing that I can create is constant clear workflow, which I can use workflow store. I can bring it up here and I use it in our app. Our sidebar a little bit ready, but we'll have to plug it into our main page component. So let's create the page component stuff. So we have our flex at screen, w screen. Let's make the background a little grayish and make the dark mode background gray 950, right? And let's plug our sidebar up here. And I don't know if it will import itself or not, but let's go ahead and import it. So we can just do import sidebar com at the rate slash components slash sidebar. Let's see if it works because I don't know if I have imported the at the rate alias or not. This is failing in, okay, last. Let's see. Oh, that. Yeah, at the rate is not resolved. Okay, so at the rate alias is not working because it is not components, it is components. Here I have just written component. Let me just rename this folder and make it components. It should work now. Let's check it out. And live node definitions is not working because my bad. So I'm using it inside sidebar. So here the n should be capital of 1, which I did, but I think autocorrect changed it. This component sidebar is not there. Okay, so sidebar is failing. One thing that we need to change is this sidebar, since we are doing export default sidebar. So we need to make it sidebar. Now let's see what the error is. Can't find variable use workflow state. Wait, use workflow state. Sidebar use, okay. Import use workflow store. Use workflow state store. Okay. From where was it? Slash library slash store. Yeah, it works, and we see hey there on the sidebar. So good. Now let's go on to the page again. And since we have sidebar here, so for sidebar, we need to give it two methods on execute, which would be here. And the other one would be check the sidebar. It is executing. So is executing, that has to come here. Okay, so now what we need to do is basically style a little bit of the sidebar. So to do that, I'm thinking that yeah, I'll start with the div itself. I'll give it some classes. So can give it the class name. Can give it width of 80, background gray of 50, and then dark background gray 900, border dark border gray 200. Then for the dark mode, let's give it border gray, I think 800. We'll verify P4 overflow auto, but in the y-axis. Okay, so this is the first one. Let's see how is it looking. Okay, executing is there. Let's comment them out for a while. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so it's we have this dedicated space here now, so that is a good thing. Now let's check here back in the sidebar. So this will be the main div that we have. Create another div. In this, let's give it a class name of mb of 6, and then let's give it h2, and let's give the h2 our class name. Why do I always type after the class? Text excel font bold mb 4, text gray 900, and in the dark mode let's put a text as white, and let's name it as minimal n8n because I want to keep that as the theme of this project. So let's see. Yeah, this looks good. So below this we need to have another division. Now this division we need to have for each of the execute and is executing buttons, I guess. So this is the division for that. Let's skip it flat and gap of 2. Let's create a button up here. But actually I want to import this button out from somewhere. Let's see. where I can import this button out from. So either I can import it out or I can set up the library to, yeah, let's use shadcn for this. So UI component is empty. Let me create a button class up here. So button.tsx. Let me keep it button. Let's import star as React from React. Then import cn from @ lib slash utils, and let's create this out in the utils. So up inside lib, let's create this utils class, utils.ts, and inside this, let's import our class oh sorry, type of class value and cls6 from cls6, and import tailwind merge from tailwind merge. And up here, let's create this function cn, which will take the inputs and class value array. And what it would do is it would return the tw merge with those inputs, right? So this works. So we'll import this up here, and in the button actually, let's export the interface of button props. So what all a button would have? First of all, we need to extend our basic React element button. So we want it to have the properties of a normal button, but we want to customize it. So we'll extend our React dot button HTML attributes, HTML button attribute element. And since we are extending this, we want variant. So we can have multiple variant. We can have a default variant. We can have a outline version. We can have a rose variant, and we can have a destructive, I guess, variant. And then the size. Two things that we want. So variant is basically the look of it, and the size is basically how big you want that to be. So small, large, and icon. Okay, this is good. So we have our prop ready. Let's create our button class that we will export. So react dot forward ref, and this will take HTML button element, and will take button props. And inside the button props, we'll give it the props actually. So we'll give it the class name. Then we'll put the variant as default, but you can customize it as well. And we'll give size also as default. So I'm templating out the button element here so that we import this button and we get the normal button properties as well, but we can customize it a little bit with some tweaks, like variant we can tweak, size we can tweak. So with that, and all the props that you have, you can pass as well, right? Reference, and then up here, let's start that. So constant base style. Now these base styles would always be there in on this element. Like the button will always contain these base styles, but we can add more styles on top of that because of this the class name element, this element that we have, that will make sure that we add more classes on top of it. So what are the base styles that we want to keep? Okay, we'll keep the inline flex up here, items center, justify center, rounded MD. Then we'll have font as medium. We'll move to the next line actually. Then we have, oops, next line does not work. Okay, I hope you guys can see here. Transition colors, focus visible, outline none, focus visible, ring 2, focus visible, ring offset 2, then disabled pointer events none, and disabled opacity 50. I guess these are good enough. So opacity 50, disabled pointer events. Yep, good enough. Let's move to the next line. Constant variants, we can have default will contain bg blue 600, will have text of white, will have hover of bg blue 700. This is the default properties. So background color 600, text white, hover blue 700. Outline would obviously we need to give it outline. So border gray 300, background transparent, hover bg gray 100, dark may we'll do border gray 700, and dark may will do hover bg gray 800. I guess this is our second theme. Then ghost theme would be over bg gray 100, dark over bg gray 800, and destructive would be bg red 600, text white over bg red 700. Right, so that is there. Variant is done. One more thing which will be size. So constant sizes would be array. Default size will be h of 10, padding of x of 4, and then padding of y as 2. Then we have our small size which will be h of 8, padding x3, text sm. We have large which will be h of 12, px of 6. Then we'll have icon as h of 10, w of 10. So this is all right. So we have our custom stuff done, and we can return our basic button up here. So this will be our HTML element of button. So, and in this we can have class name as cn with base styles, and then we can have variants as variant, and then we can have sizes as size, and then we can have class name. So basically what it will do is it will give all the elements that we have created into that basic element, and I guess will work. So return will up here. So button dot display name will be button, and export of button. Right, so I guess this is the definition for button. Where is it failing? Let me just check once. Okay, class button is wrong because it is not class, it is constant button. So now our indentation also kicked in, and yeah, looks good. Let's go back to this side. This is our sidebar, and in this we have button, right? So let's import button here. So let's do an import button here from @components /UI/ button. So button will be imported from here, and we'll be using that up here. So this is the button which we imported. Let's see if our app is running. No, because it can't resolve CLSX. That might be because we need to install CLSX. Let's open up a terminal up here, and let's simply do npm install CLSX. This should work. Yeah. So tw merge is not there, so tailwind merge also we need to install. So for that also we'll do npm install tailwind merge. This should work now. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, so we have our button up here, which is sort of this blue thingy, I guess. let's see what else we can do up here. In the sidebar, we have added our button. Inside the button, we need some other components as well. Like there are components that come from. So inside the button, we need a couple of things. One is on execute, sorry. One is on click method actually. On click method on which we'll run on execute, which is coming from our sidebar import up on the top there. And then we need is disabled, which would be is executing, which is also coming from there. When it is sort of like executing, I want it to be disabled, that is there. But what should be the text inside it? So I'll import this play icon from lucid property. So let me do just display, and let me go on top of the screen, and let me do an import here. Import play from lucid react. Let me go, oops, my bad. Let me go up here, and yeah, play is there. So this should be an icon, which, yeah, the icon is visible over there. Let's give it the name. So class name, we can give it mr2h4w4. And inside the play, it depends, like if it is executing, in that case we want to name it as running dot dot dot. And if it is not that, then we need to give it execute as the keyword. So we check it again. Oops, why is it not coming out? I need to write it outside play. Yeah. Yep. So we have our execute button ready. Let's quickly create other buttons as well. So we'll need another button which is sort of similar. Let me just take all these buttons, copy it out, create another button which will be on the same level with some gap. So on click would be clear workflow, and the variant of it should be outline, because I don't want it to be a solid button. And inside here, the button I want is trash. So instead of this, I can just do slash sit, and I don't want this to be here. Yep. And I don't want a name up here, and trash I can get from here. Trash, right? Yep. Execute, and trash is here. Now there are a couple of properties which are skewed, but we'll check them out. We can just do trash 2, I guess. Another icon, trash 2. Yeah, this is a better icon. So you got that. In this button, let's give it a class name as well of flex1, so that this starts looking better. Okay, so up here, let's go and create this array. So we want some sort of categories to be there, right? So we defined some categories up here, different sort of categories. So we want to loop over them. So object dot entries of categories, and then we can map over each category. So each category and title, and let's create an arrow function, start our bracket up here. And for each of the category, we want to create a division key of category, and we want the class name to be mb of 6, mb of 6. Then we want h, actually div we didn't close. Yep. Then we want h3 of class name of XSM font semi bold mb3 text gray 600 bar text gray 400 uppercase and tracking wider. So that is one thing we want with this h3. And inside it, we want the title to be there, whatever the title we are using. And inside this title, we want to show our element. So inside this, now for each category, we want to show our sub elements which are there inside that. So we can create a div, we can give it class name of space y as 2, and inside the day we'll have our grouped categories, nodes and categories, category, just one category, dot map node. Inside the node we'll use here, this is div, and the key was supposed to be node dot type. Now we'll make it draggable. On drag start, we'll call a function which will be event, and we'll take the on drag start method which we're getting over here, node dot type, right? And we'll enter it out, and the class name that we want to give it, that's gonna be padding of 3, pg of white, dark pg gray of 800, border gray 200, then we'll have dark border gray 700, rounded pg cursor move over shadow md and transition shadow. Right, so we got our elements done up here. So this is our whole div created, and this is basically inside the group nodes. And group nodes, we have something over here which we created using the node definitions array which we created out in the very beginning. So we got that. Inside each of this div, let's create the sub div, which is like class name will be flex items start gap of 3, then div of class name as node.color p2 rounded md. Inside it we'll have node.icon class name h of 4, blue of 4, and text white. Yeah, so this is done. So item start, yeah, this is going to be one div, and then inside this we'll have another div which will be like class name of flex1 min w0, and we have div of class name as font medium, text sm, text gray 900, and dark text white. Inside it will give node.label, and one last div which is sort of like class name text x6, text gray 500, dark text gray 400, and empty 0.5. And inside it will give node.description. Yep, so yeah, everything is done now pretty much. So let's just check the look. Oh, it's very smudged. Let's see where we did some error. One thing that we need to change here is not definitions, which I did. So this should have an S here. This S is wrong, so it is not definition. Oh, I created S here as well. This should be not definition. Not definition. Interface also has, and let's find it out. This should be definitions, but this is definition, so no definition. Let's check the UI now. Okay, it's same. I guess let me create the below elements, and then I think it might make more sense. So outside the return, just below the div, let's create another div. Let's give it the class name as mt of 8, pt of 4, pg blue 50, dark pg blue 900 by 20, rounded large border blue 200, and dark will have border blue 800. Let's keep this, and then let's create a paragraph. Let's give it a class name of text of x6, text blue 800, and then dark blue, text blue, and 200, I guess. And inside the paragraph, let's give it a strong tab as well. Strong. Inside it, let's give it a tip, and outside it, let's try drag nodes onto the canvas and connect them to create to create workflows. AI nodes require Azure OpenAI credentials in .env. Let's see. Yeah, so tip and everything is fine. I am not sure why. Okay, the trash to icon is also there, which is all right. I think it is sort of a caching issue. Let me try it on Chrome. Let me bring the Chrome up here. Actually, Safari is very bad in caching. Yep. This works now, like, and the nodes are draggable as well. So yeah, this works now. Execute, and this button is also nice. This tip might be hanging out a little bit, but let's see. I'll minimize this. Let's use Chrome only to get our variable. Let's see our page and let's see what all is required. So sidebar is there, execute function we can add in a while. That's not really an important thing right now. What else we need to do? We need to create the node. So when we drag that particular thing and bring it on the screen, so when we are dragging this and bringing it on the screen, it's not actually doing anything. We need to fix that, right? So to fix that, we'll need to add some data elements. Like I'll create a div now. I'll put it here. I'll get this div down here so that this div is encapsulating the React flow. I'll give it some class which will be flex of 1 so that it takes a lot of place. Reference, I can give it React flow wrapper, and this React flow wrapper I can create a hook over here, constant React flow wrapper is basically a use reference of HTML div element, and initially I can keep it null. Like this, I think will be a wrapper reference so that we can add elements into it and remove elements from it. Another hook which we can add is basically React flow instance, and this will set React flow instance, and this will be use state, and this will take any as a input and null in the starting. This will actually take care of the current running instance of the React flow. So if I go down back to React flow, we need to add a couple of things. So node and edges, we got it. On connect, what should we do when we connect the edge? We need our on connect method as well. Now this on connect obviously will come from this on connect, I guess we'll write later on. So I'll remove this. This is when we are connecting the edges. One, let's see what is the current progress. Use ref is not there. Let's import use ref from here. Yeah, let's try dragging it and dropping it. I'm not sure why it is not working. Let's try to fix that first. I think on node change and node edge change. Yeah, I need to write a helper method which works over here. So for changing state, let's me write constant handle node change, which will be on node change, which will be use callback, and use callback. I am getting that I need to import change is, and then on nodes change as changes, and changes for each of the change that I'm doing. If change dot type is equals to remove, in that case I actually need to add edges and all. Use callback, let's import from here, use callback, and if it is removed then we will take constant of nodes as current nodes and use workflow store.get state. So we'll get the state, we'll set the nodes as current nodes dot filter, where it should have every node but not the node which is there, which we are removing, right? So that is there. Else if the change dot type is equals to change type is position and position is there in change, in that case we'll do node as if nodes of find and n where n dot id is equals to change dot id. I guess I can do triple up here, and if the node is there and change dot position is there, let's do constant update nodes as nodes dot map, and let's take the node and let's do node dot id is equals to change dot id, and if it is not there, in that case we'll do n comma position as change dot position, or not, and this won't be n, this should be node up here as well, right? Yeah, update position is fine, and over here we'll do set nodes as update nodes. Yep, this works, and yep, this works. And since it is a callback hook, we can make sure that we run it every time when there are nodes, their own nodes change, and when there is set nodes. Right, so on these three things we can run it. Yep. So we'll import it here, handle node change as on node change. Let's see if it works now. Does not work still. Let me refresh it. Nope. Let's import hard reload. Does it work inside this now? Not working. Okay, node changes there on init. Let's write init. So when we initialize it, set react flow instance. Let's do that. Let's see. Nope. And do we have this up here? This we have created, right? Yep. Let's create one on drop. I think that is why we need our on drop element as well. So let's create one on drop as well, constant on drop. So this will also be a callback method. So use callback. We'll take an event of type react.drag event, and we'll take this event up. We'll start a method up here, event dot event default. So constant type of event dot data transfer dot get data, that should be application dot slash react flow. If not type is not there, or not react flow instance. If any of them is not there, return constant definitions will be node definitions and of type. So you'll get the definitions up here, and if definitions is not found, then also we return it. Constant position can be react flow instance dot screen to flow position, and over here x can be event dot client x, and y can be event dot client y. That's good. And then constant new node can be workflow node, which will go up here, id as node slash and node id counter plus plus. Type can be custom. Then we have position as position only, I guess. Data can be, because position we created up here, right? Data can be labeled as definition dot label. Type will be definition dot type, and then config would be definition dot default config, then type will be definition dot type, right? And we can export all of that as node data. And after all of this is done, we can just call our add node with this new node, not new node, new node. So yeah, this is something which works. And yeah, we also need to give the parameters here. We have flow instance, and then we need add node. Yep. What else do we need to add up here? Give it some class name as background of gray of 50, and then dark background of gray of 900. I don't think this, I think this, there is some sort of caching issue. I can't drop it, man. Let's do a drag over as well. On drop is basically adding. Oh, on drag over should start getting the node in the instance, and then on drop should add it. I guess that is why. Okay. Constant on drag over, again use callback. Come on, that's not kind of constant at this point. Event react dot drag event, and we take this event dot prevent default and event dot data transfer dot drop effect is equals to move, right? And then I think I missed a bracket up here. I need to open up a bracket, and I need to close up a bracket, and I need to give it an empty. Come on, please, for God's sake, work now. Nah, man, this is not working. What else is remaining now? Let's add this fit view also here. Fit view. Let's try it out now. Whenever I'm trying to drop it, is there something even in console? Node definitions is not defined. Wait a second, node definitions is not defined. One second, am I being using node definitions? Oh crap, I didn't import it. Okay, I got it. So import node definitions from @lib/node definitions, right? Is that fine now? Node ID counter is not defined. Node ID counter. Yep. Node ID counter is, I need to define it over here as a global variable. Node ID counter as 0, because every node that we drop up there, we need to give it some ID, right? Okay, we got our webhook trigger up here. That is good. So we have our element dropping here. Minimap is showing this. Now we need to design it out, right? So that is one thing which we need to do, which we haven't done. Let me run through all of this once so that you guys get the context. React flow wrapper, basically we wrap the whole flow. Instance is basically the current elements on the sheet, whichever is there. Executing is executing, which we've still not fired it yet. We need to write the methods for handle node change so that we can, whenever this node is added or not, wait, yeah, on node change is basically whenever you change some configuration property inside the node, you reflect that change out here, because that is what set node is. It changes the property inside the node, and there are different properties as well, which is like on init, on drop, on drag over. You've got to move it, fit view, and then yeah, on edge change we have to write and a couple of methods as well. But for now, yep, this works. One thing which we can do is basically either give this a structure, or we can complete our flow up here. Okay, let's complete out our flow, I guess. Let's bring out some other things like use as states. Then we can get node types, and then we can get our own connect. Then we can get own node change, on edge change, and then we can get panel, and then we can get our connection also. This connection would be for, so connection will be for the edges connecting, on edge change, on nodes change, on connect, node type. All of these are sort of variables just to make sure that node, we can define the node. So how does node type work? So we can do constant node type, and we can do node types up here, and we can give it a custom node which we can define. So this custom node we can define somewhere else, and we can use this custom node. We can tell our React flow, okay, each of your nodes you have to create it like this custom node up here. So you can create it, we can import it from some of the property up here. We can start by doing that, I guess. We can change, we can go one by one of all of our imports, understanding it and seeing how does it come in picture. So node types, you need some custom node, right? So the custom node is not defined. Let's go up here in the component. Let's create a new file, custom node.tsx, right? Here, let's give it use client. Let's import react memo from react and import. Need a bunch of different stuff, but yeah, let's start by creating this custom node function. It will have some data id and selected, three components up here, and we can give it node props, which we need to define actually, workflow node, and inside the workflow node we can give it the data. And one second, yep, and we can import the workflow node from @library/types, and we'll need the definition for this as well. So we can get node definitions from @library/node definitions. We got this from there. Then we can get constant of definition as node definitions data.type, type of data that we are having. If node definition return null, if definition is not found, in return null. Definition.icon, and constant show input is definition category if it is not equal to trigger. So for trigger, we don't need to show the input, but otherwise we need to do that. Return, we can just do div. Actually, we can do div. Let's give it a basic class name, which can be relative. Background can be white, dark may background can be gray with 800, rounded LG, shadow LG, border true, transition all. Then we can start by giving it our custom placeholders. Like if let's say it is selected, that case we give it border blue 500, and if it is not, then we give it border gray 200, and dark will give border gray 700. Then another thing is basically dot data dot is executing is true. In that case, we give it ring dot to, ring dot blue dot 400. Otherwise, we don't give it anything. And the third thing is if data dot error is up there. Did I make some mistake? I missed a bracket. If data dot error is a mistake, then we give it ring to, ring 400, ring red of 400. Otherwise, let's give it empty one. That works. This is basically the border of it, and we can handle the input up here. So show input up here, show input, and it's not there, so we can create a handle out of it. So handle we can get from React Flow, import handle from React Flow. So handle can be there, which will be self-closing. Type can be target, position can be position dot left. Now this position will also be coming from the React Flow, because we need to find the position of our element up there. So that will be there. So class name will be not tree, not h3, not blue, 500, so this not tells Tailwind that this is an important property and needs to take care of it. And if that is theirs, then let's also create the header of the node. So this will be the node's header. And what we can do is class name again, we can start and by here definitions color p.3 rounded t lg, can have flex up here, items center, gap of 2. Then we can get the icon up here, icon, yep. And we can give it class name of h of 5, w of 5, text of white, and span class name font semi bold, text right, text sm, and flex 1. Definition dot label, data dot is executing, it is executing, and if here we can just put a loader to class name, we can give it h of 4, w of 4, text of white, and animate spin. So you can give it that, and loader 2 I'll import it right now from our icons class. And if data dot output and not data dot is executing and not data dot error, and in that case we'll do circle check circle. Class name can be h4, again same w4, and the text white element here slash. Okay, this check circle also I'll import everything at once if data is error, and then in that case we'll just import this alert circle, similar class name as h4 w4, text of white. Yeah, I guess this goes. These 3 things I need to import. Let's import it from Lucid React, loader 2, check circle, and alert circle. Import loader 2, check circle, and alert circle from Lucid React. Okay, the header is done, the border is done. Now just the main body is left. Let's see that. So this will be the main body of our node. So p3, give name, class name of text of extra small, text of gray of 600, then dark, text gray 400, and medium of 2. Definitions dot description. This will come in the body, and then you have data config and an object dot keys data dot config dot length is greater than 0, and the class name for this text access, background of gray of 50, then background of the dark background gray 900, p2 rounded border gray 200, dark border gray 700, class name flex item center gap of 1, text gray of 500, dark of text gray 400. Then we'll have settings. We'll have class name as f3 w of 3, and we're gonna have spam as well. System will be configured. The settings will also come from the icons, so we can import maybe settings also from icon here. Settings. Okay, this is done as well. After the config, we might have to handle the error as well. So we'll have data.error, and so if in case there is an error, we'll have another div which will be class name of mt2, text of access, background of red 550, then dark background red 900 by 20, text red 600, dark text red 400, pf2 rounded border red 200, dark border red. So for both the method, we have done this here. So this is for error, and if there is an output but there isn't an error, so in that case we can copy up the same line and we can go up here, we can tweak stuff. So if data dot output and then not data and then not data dot error, in that case we can go empty. In this case we can just make it green. This will be green, this will be green as well. Actually we just need to replace all the reds with green. Yeah, that works. This is the second thing, and yeah, now we just need to handle our output. So we can just create another handle, and type can be source, position can be, we need to handle the position dot right now. Position dot right, and then we need to give it a class name which is similar to the one that we gave up there. Let me just copy it. Same thing, blue border white. Yes, this works. And export default memo of custom node. Yep. Do I have any import issues? I don't think so. Okay, yeah, this is our custom node which is ready. Custom styling and not much, like all the data is coming from this icon up here, and I think that's pretty much it. I hope the div I'm closing, not closing the div. Inside here I need to close the div. What is this div gonna come here? Yeah, I guess this div will come here. Okay, custom node is ready. Up here I added the node types as custom node. Up here on the draggable component, I can add the node type as node types. This will come from here and here. Actually, n should be small. Yeah, it's small. Let's try it out a little. Custom node is not defined. Oh, I need to import custom node. Import. I don't think we will export custom node from at the rate slash lib slash components. That's it, I think. Custom. Uh, what is it saying? It cannot find the custom node. Why can't it find? It's right here. Custom node and custom node. One thing I think that we need to import from here is this node props. The node props we need to import from React Flow. I am not sure why it cannot resolve the element. Should be able to resolve this. Oh, I added a library in front of it. Yeah. Now there are a bunch of issues which it will tell me node type is on a DOM element. Let's verify if we have screwed up stuff in this. First of all, the category will be trigger. Then we need to add another class which is minw 200 pixel. What did I miss? So inconsistency up here. Trigger. 1 second. Oh, I'm not displaying anything here. So data.error. And up here also would be executed successfully. Yep, works. Need to make it green. Yeah, I think this should be working now. Why is this like this? Hard reload. Let's go. Yep. Okay, there React does not recognize the node type prop on a DOM element. Okay. Where is our node type prop on a DOM element? Let's see. Node type. This should be node types. Okay. This is spread out across the whole thing. This should not be like this. Anyways, we can fix that in a while. Let's maybe fix it from background up here. Color we can just do hash AAA, and gap we can have 16. I guess that will make it smaller. I guess to fix this, let's to do class name fit type drag drop init nodes and edges. Yeah, there are a couple we can't drag it as well. So this React Flow, this whole component is queued up as well. So yeah, we can add more nodes up here. Let's add more nodes so that we can maybe put those together. So up here, default post, and we have a couple of things left here, which is, yeah, one more property up here. So after default post, we need name as path, then we have label as webhook path, we have type, it's text, let's remove this, then we have placeholder as slash webhook, then we have default value as slash webhook. Yep, and this was the first one. Let's close it out. There will be another one which is schedule. Schedule type will be schedule. I guess I'll be typing it for a while. I'll put all of the file in a repo and I'll give you that so that you guys can just copy all the config out. This should not take much time. Cool. Okay, so what I did is I imported a bunch of different variables or icons, I added this webhook was already there. Then I added schedule, which is label as schedule, trigger, runs a workflow, clock, purple, interval, default is 5. There are config fields. Then we have AI text generation as one of the nodes. I have bunch of default values. Icon is sparkles, default config, write a professional email is the default value. And like that AI analyzer, default values up here. Then I have AI chatbot, default values up here. Then I have AI data extractor, default values up here, HTTP request. These are known AI actions. So that is up here. And then I have data transform, which you can use to transform the data. Send email, another one. And then if else, a classic branch statement. There's a delay as well. And yeah, that's it. I'm saving it and you can see all the nodes up here. I can put webflow, schedule, AI, and yeah, this just works. So now since we have our node definitions complete, let's go ahead and complete this page now. So after the mini map, we need to customize a bunch of stuff. Inside the mini map also, we'll give some stuff. Let's say node color. Let's give it for node. We'll have to check the type of the node. So on definition is node definitions dot node dot data dot type. Return definition. If this is there, then color dot includes gradient. It includes gradient. You return hash 8b5c6. Not definitions. Color dot replace bg with empty thing. Or there's a default value hash 6366f1. And after that, let's give it a class name which is background of white, and for dark mode we give background of gray 800. After that, let's put a panel as well. This panel, I think we have imported. I don't know if we have imported or not. Panel, yeah, we have imported the panel. So inside this panel, we'll give it the position, which will be top center, and class name can be bg white, dog bg gray 800, tx4, ty2, round and large, shadow large, border gray 200, dark border gray 700. Yep, and inside this panel we can have our div of class name textsm. It's gray 800 600, I guess. And then dark text gray 400. And class name font semi bold, text gray 900, dark text white. We'll give nodes dot length here. This with space, nodes dot space. This, let's give it span, which is class name, again the same one. We copy it out from here. Semi bold white. And after the span, inside the span would be full dot length. And after span, I have connections. Yep, so the panel also works. Panel is basically a band on the top which will tell you number of nodes and connections right now. And after this, let's create this selection node. So selected node ID, and we need to create a node config panel. So we'll create that, which will be node ID. You can just pass in the node ID to the selected node ID, and you can just do on close. So I'll comment it out right now. I'll open it up later, I guess. So set selected node ID as null. Right. Let's see what's the issue. We need to close that. Yeah. So this node config panel, I probably would comment out for now. We'll bring this back later. So this is our connections, and it still is quite ugly. Why is the minimap not going down? So let's close on our basic methods. For example, this one, we need a little clarity. So let's put more methods inside this and let's close on them. For example, there is node edges on node. There should be another one which is on connect. So we'll have on connect method. Then we'll have on init, on drop, on drag over. Then we'll have another method which is on node double click, and on node double click, right? Then we have node types, which is node types. Then we have fit view and the class name, which is background gray 50, and that is fine. The gap of 16 is fine as well. Controls is fine. Minimap. Apparently the minimap should be down, but somehow that minimap is not down. So we need to figure that out as well. Panel is fine, which is in the top center. And this div right here, this is ending up here, which is fair. Let's do one thing. Let's start from the very start. Let's check out on our nodes. I think this nodes will be our state element. Let's come on. Yeah, nodes and on node change and everything is there. Let's create on edge change, I guess. On edges change. Can just use callback, and we can take the changes in on edge change, and we can go put the changes up here, and changes for each of them. For each of the change, what we can do is, if change dot type is equals to remove constant edges current edges use workflow store get state. So you get the state, you set the edges as current edges dot filter, then we go out here dot id not equals to change dot id. This is the change dot id. No. Okay. So handle add change is there. You can just plug it here. Handle change as let change. Let's do on connect now. So you can have, anyways, let's do constant on connect, which can take on connect as type. Use callback connection, and we take it up here, constant edge. We will take the connection up here, and we'll give it the id as e dollar connection dot source dash connection dot target, and the type would be smooth animated to. Add edge will be our method, edge as any, and after here add edge. I guess since we are using callback method over here in edge change also, we should be giving it a callback, which ideally should be after changes for each or after this. I'm not sure. After this, I guess. Yeah. Edges on edges change and then set edges. Right. This is done. Init is set React flow, which is fine. On drop is fine. On drop have I done that? Yep. On drop I have done. On drag over. On drag over I have done. On node double click. Let's see that. I have not written that. So constant on node double click. Use callback event react dot mouse event node any, and when we double click on that, we need set selected node id as node.id. That works, and that works. So that is done. Node type is there. I think most of our files are done. We just need to put the code for execution, which will be up here in the sidebar. But other than that, yeah, and node config panel. So I guess 90%. No, not 90%. I can't drag it still. Why is that? One issue is on edges change. This should be on edges change. Let's see if there is some difference. Nah, man. What the error is on node change, on edges change. Will there be some difference in this? Nah, man. Handle nodes change. Handle nodes change. Nope. Can we connect it? No. Oh, one thing which I checked the documentation I found, we need to import this React flow dot test dot style dot css. Alright. That was the main issue. Why our page was not looking as good as it should, the nodes and everything. This is one line which we have to import here, which was making the whole thing wrong. And yeah, you can basically connect and all. I don't know why this is not working. That's another thing to fix, but yeah, this is one issue. Another issue which I found is basically node is already up here. So I think I'll have to use n here so that I don't coincide with that. Let's try with that. This works. At least drag and drop are working, but the connection is not working. Another thing which I found is we are not importing this workflow node. So the two things that we need to import is import workflow node and node data from @lib slash types. Maybe that might be the issue. Yep. Yep. So I guess I was being a little silly the other day. I think I was a little silly and a little sleepy as well, so I didn't realize. We were trying to actually connect the wrong type of nodes. So if we check, like I had webhook trigger here, schedule trigger here. Two trigger type of nodes can't be connected. So let me, I don't know how to delete it. I think this would delete it. Okay. This and this that will get connected because yep, we had wrote the code to make the connections like that. Okay, so yeah, let's proceed with the code that we had. I don't know which screen is the main screen. Yeah. Okay, let's go. So yesterday we removed this node config panel from here. Let's try and implement this today. So what this thing would do is basically whenever you click this node, we are supposed to bring this panel out from the right side of the page, which will give you the properties that should be inside this node actually. So basically for text generator, we need to give certain fields. And if I show you the code in node definitions, we have this thing called config fields. So in fields, we have different things. Like if I go text generations, we have this field called prompt, right? So you need to give the text generation some prompt on which it should be generating the text. So those fields we need to populate up here. And for that, we need to create this node config handler panel or something so that we can type out those fields. So for that, I'll create that custom component right here in node config panel ts6. There are certain things that we need to take care of. First of all, we put it as client, zoom the screen out a bit so that you guys can see, and then import the basic cadence like react and use state and use effect, right? From so we got all of that. And let's export our default function called node config panel, and up here I'll need to give it some prompts. So node config panel prompts. Actually, I need to remove this, put it here. Yeah, this will be the And what do we need in node config panel? We need the node ID and on close. So on close should make all of this disappear. So let me give interface node config panel props, and node ID should be here as string, and on close can be a void up here. So we can get node ID from here, and on close can also come from here. Now in the method, we'll actually let's create the state first. So nodes and update nodes. This should be coming from workflow store, and we should be importing this as well. Import use workflow store from @/library store. That's where we store it. So the nodes would come here. So whichever node, how will we filter out the node? We have the node ID. So we can go nodes.find n, actually in the bracket n, where n dot id equals to node ID. That is coming as the parameter. Now we got the node, we need to get the config of that node. So we'll create a state variable. So use state, we'll have a record, and record will have string and any, because that is what we had. And this should be node dot data dot config, or it can be empty, right? So use effect. Now when the page loads, we need to do is node dot data dot config. If that is empty, then we need to set config as node dot data dot config. And the set config, does it have an issue? Nope. And this should work when the node loads. Yeah, so use effect looks good. Yeah, now comes the main rendering of the components. So it is simple. If there is no node, just return, so that we don't get an empty sort of value, I guess. Let's have definitions. So that will be node definitions and node.data.type. And let's import it out. So import node definitions from @lib/node definitions. I hope I don't make some typo. That's the bad thing about it. I hope it is right. Yes, I think it is right. Okay, got the definitions. If not definition, then also we'll return, right? There are a bunch of methods, but we'll first render out our return statement, which can be div, and we can give its new class name. Let's say fixed inset y of 0, right of 0, w of 96, bg white, dark will have bg of gray of 800, and then shadow 2xl, border L, border gray 200, dark can have border gray of 700, Z of 50, and overflow Y auto. Right, so will be the main div. We'll have another div inside it, which would be class name of, let's make it sticky because this will be the header, and top of 0, bg of white, dark bg gray 800, border B, border gray 200, dark border gray 700, P of 4, flex item center, justify between. Right, now inside this div, let's put another div which will have h3 of h2 h3 of class name text lg and semi bold, text gray of 900, dark of text white, and figure more. P, you can have class name as text person, text gray of 900 or 500, dark of text gray 400, empty of 1. Now this will be the main paragraph, which will be definition.label. So this definition.label, actually this field definition, and this is something which is going on wrong since here. One wrong element and you just keep on, you just get screwed. After this div, this will be the label, but after that we need a button which will work when you click it till save or close, I guess. First let's do on click, we do on close. You can give it some class name which will be text gray 500 over text gray 700, dark text gray 400, dark over text gray 200. And we need this cross button which will come from our lucid icon only. So this, but then the class name would be h of 5, w of 5. Right, so let's import, or we can import it later as well. Like, I don't generally leave imports out there, but this will make an exception. So let's create the input fields as well. The class name can be p of 4 space of y4, and in this the definition is supposed to have certain fields. So the config fields that it will have will map that, and each field that we are having, that will translate to the div, and the key would be field dot name, and the label, and this label is supposed to come from this class. We'll create actually this component as well. Let's give it this class name as text query 700 dot text query 300, and this label will take the field dot label, and it will take field dot required, and span class name text red 500 ml1, and this will have star. That means it is a required field sort of. Let's create label and let's import out this X from the lucid icon. So let's do that. Import X from lucid react, and let's create this component here as well. So this will be label dot tsx, and in here we'll be importing star as react from react, import cn from like the cn that we created dot utils, and export interface label. It will be of the same type that we created label props actually for now. Props, and let's delete it out. What am I doing even? Label props extends with react dot label html attributes html label element, and this constant label can be react dot forward, the same thing that we did earlier, forward ref html label element label props. So this basically extends your native implementation, adds certain extra fields. We'll give it class name props, and then we'll give it props, and then we'll give it reference, and then arrow function running to the return statement. What we are going to return, the return will be the normal label start and end. The reference will be ref that is coming from there. The class name would contain the cn property, and certain based classes like text will be small, font would be medium, loading should be none, here disabled, and then cursor not allowed, cursor not allowed, here disabled, opacity let's take 70, and class name. So this is good, and pause that. Let's do dot props. See, what did I mess up here? Complete it. I don't know why this is display name can be, oh, it's gone. I guess that's what was missing. Port label. So we exported the label from here. Let's go back to our node panel. I think we need to import this label now. So let's import this label from @components/UI/label. Yep, I think that resolves the import dependency. Now for each type of field, so if field dot type is equals to text, and input type, actually input I'll close as well so that I don't see this error message again and again. If the type is equals to text, value can be config and field dot name or field dot default value or null. So error handling at its best. So one change would be e of handle change. This is a method that will create basically field name and e dot target dot value, and placeholder can be field dot placeholder, and class name can be empty1. Right, so input is there. We'll do similar 3-4 times. Let's do, if it is number, in that case let's have it input type as number. Let's have it config field name default, change value can be same, placeholder empty1. Let's have it for text area as well, area. Instead of this, let's have text area. Type won't be there. Config field name, default value, field name, placeholder, empty1. Give it a couple of more classes, like font can be mono and text can be small. And if the type is, let's say, select, in that case we can give it select. Type will remove. Config value field name, handle change, placeholder won't be there, last name will be empty1. And in select we need to give it options as well, so select, close link. In here we need to give it field dot options. If they are not null, then map. And for each option we need to render out the option, so this will be option key can be option dot value, and value can be option dot value, given that all the options are different actually, otherwise this won't work. So a little flow, but yeah, that's fine. Option dot label. Right, so this got our select. Now we again need to create a bunch of different, let's put option here. We need a couple of different like things. Select, text area, input. Yeah, let's create these elements. So let's start with our input. So input.tsx. Let's import the same thing from label and let's change it, right? React utils input plus input props. Instead of label, let's do this input, and instead of this label, let's do it input, right? This will also be the same input props. Let's change that to input as well. Instead of label, let's put it input here. Instead of ref, let's put type also here, which can come from here, and then the type will be coming from here as well. So remove the ref. Actually, ref can stay. In here, the classes we need to change. So this will change like flex, h of 10, w of full, rounded, md, border gray 300, pgy 3x3, py2, text sm, placeholder text gray 400, focus focus outline none, focus ring 2, focus ring blue 500, disabled cursor not allowed, disabled spelling is not right, disabled cursor not allowed, disabled opacity. I could have just kept these fields. We'll have dark border gray 700, dark background gray 900, and the dark text gray 100. Yep, that works, and we'll send out our class name and then props. So instead of this, let's go input, and here let's put the input and input this input. right? So this is our input done. Similar to input, let's create our another one, which is select.ps6. Let's put it here. Select props input. Let's replace it with select. Right. So which one did I replace? Okay. Select props. Instead of this input, we'll select, 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 and select, and select, and select. Alrighty. We just need to change this select with this select. So select props. Yeah, that works nice, man. Children up here, because we need children element up here. Select. Now type is not there, ref is there, class name is there, props is there. And instead of this, we need to give the children here. And let's select tag up here. Let's check our classes. So I think we just need to replace the placeholder class. Other than that, all other classes should be good. All other classes should be good. The last thing that we need to create is this text area. Let's create that as well. Text area or tsx. Let's add that here instead of input now. Find, and let's replace this by text area. Let's start from the very first. Text area props. Text area. Text area. I need to make a capital here because it is text area element. Text area. Text. What did I change now? Text area. Text area element. This input can be text area, and then this input can be text area, text area, text area. Okay. These are fine. Just we need to do small one. Type will remove from here as well. Classes we need to change, I think. Instead of h as 10, we need to give minimum h of 80 pixel. Border gray, background white, stick small, placeholder 400. I think everything else looks good. This text area was left. Let's verify for others as well. Oh, we were almost screwed. We were almost screwed. Select, label would be label, input would be input. We were almost screwed, but yeah, we made it through. Let's go back and save all of this. Let's go back to our, where is that node config panel, and let's import our stuff. So from label, let's write this down. So from input will come from input, select will come from select, and text area will come from text area, right? So we are not using the text area. Okay, A is capital. My bad. Text area will come. Did I use text area? Oh, I didn't use the capital one. Yeah, I need to use smaller A here. Text area. Yep, that works. Now this couple of buttons, which is will be like the save buttons. Border gray 700, flex gap of 2. Then the button that we created on click can have handle save, and class name can be flex of 1. Inside button will have save configuration, and another button up here, but another button up here which will be on click as on close, and inside the variant can be outline. Inside the button will be cancel. So are we not importing the button? Okay, let's quickly import the button as well. Button. Okay, let's go. Button is done. Last thing, which is node.data.output. If there is some data output, in that case we need full of things, class name empty 6p of 4 eg gray. This section is basically for the output data which will be coming from after the action has executed. So for that we need to create a box that will have the data. Border gray, border dark, border gray 700. Inside the div h4 with class name as text custom and semibold text gray 700 dark text gray 300 MB of 2. Last output, let's name it, and let's create a pre-class name of xs text gray 600 dark text gray 400 overflow x order. Like this, let's do JSON stringify node.output node.data.output cool. So yeah, I think this is good. Let's see how it looks. Let's open up that from our page section up here. Let's open it up here. I think I need to, I don't know, let's check it out. Yeah, so if I put it up here, node config panel is not defined. Okay, my bad, didn't define it. So import node config panel. Let's see if it is the default export or not. This is a default export. So page, let's go node from. This ill is in slash components slash node config panel. I think this is the file name, right? Node config panel, yes. Let's see if it is defined now. On click handle save is not there. Ah, crap. Okay, I forgot to create this method. So it can be handle save, and then this method can be update node id and config on close, and I need to create a handle change as well, which is name of string value of any, not name, any, and let's set config as previous, and then this can be previous element and then name and the value. Yeah, I think this should work now. Let's see. Yeah, the configurations are coming. I just can't see uh, the use effect working, but I think that I'll have to hover up here for it to work. Yeah, I think there is some bug. We'll try to debug it. Yeah, that's a good progress. We can see the sidebar coming up here. Okay, so we have our app here, the node that we add. If we click on this save configuration, first of all, we are not getting the items up here. Second, clicking on save configuration does nothing. Let's see, save configuration, there is an error in update node. Let's open up the update node, and actually this should be update node instead of update nodes. Okay, so one change would be if the field is getting rendered, this should be a normal bracket instead of a curly bracket. And I think from the node configuration panel, let's say we are bringing in select. Here we are having, yeah, the probes are wrong. Instead of placeholder, it should be placeholder. So let's take up this and replace it everywhere. Replace, that's already replaced. Yeah, I think that's good. And since this is a text area, we should have rows as 6. And then at the end, after the div, we can just remove this element. Let's try, oh, there we go. We got our this whole prompt thing working. Small bits of errors, but yeah, we made that happen. Actually, the thing is this keeps on telling you what's the error. So okay, that's a good progress. We have our node config panel also ready. Custom node is almost ready. Let's check our page, what's remaining. Is there something which is remaining? I think the only thing which would be remaining now is the on execute functions, which has to go here. Yeah, so let's go on to this phase, which is creating the execute method. That's probably going to be the last one of that because our UI is almost ready. We can create our webhook trigger, this trigger, we can give it, attach them, write some prompts, cancel it, open this up, save configurations, all of that works. The only thing that is remaining is basically give it functionality that once we click execute, nothing happens, right? So I have to plug in this button. If I go over here, if I click on execute, nothing happens because we have not given this method to our this sidebar, sorry, yeah, sidebar, right? So we need to give it that method. Okay, so let's start by creating this method, which is constant execute workflow. This will be a async method going on over here. So simple, if nodes dot length equals to 0, that's the classic checks we have to do at the starting. We'll alert that add some nodes to the workflow, I guess, right? And return. So that is one. Then we'll check set is executing as true, which we created on the top as a state variable. Constant executor that we need to create, which is new workflow executor. Right, now we'll go in a depth first sort of manner in which we'll create all the sub classes and then move to the next. So here we need this workflow executor, right? Now workflow executor the call will go to workflow executor. Now for workflow executor, we need to import it over here, but where do we import it from? So we'll import it from workflow executor from, and I'm going to create this file in library and work actually in executor, right? Let me create a new file inside lib, which is executor.ts. Now this will contain the main code of this executor file. So we need to get certain types. So we have the types. So we actually have these types up here, which is execution context, which is node ID, input, configuration value, and the previous node value. So all the value which is coming from the previous node, we want to get that value here as well, so that we can use whatever that previous node has generated. For example, let's say if you have AI content generation node, so after it has generated that content for you, you want to copy that and use it again in the next node. So for that, we'll have this previous node, and then we have node execution result, which is basically the current result which will be there, right? So let's go back to the executor. Let's import these two files. So node execution context, and node execution result. I'll get this from theme directory types, right? Got this, and then one other thing which we need is node definitions, which will be from node definitions, right? So let's create a class. So we'll create this class of workflow executor. Now see, since it is a class, we need to have certain private methods. The first private method will be the main method which we'll be having, which is execute node. And since it is an execute node, I want to have it as a public element because this will be the entry point of all the classes and everything inside our main project. So execute node will be the starting point. Now what this method will take, this will take a context which will be node execution context, which we just created. And what it will return is a promise in the manner of node execution result. Simple, we created two variables and there we have, right? Let's open up this method and write our implementation. So we'll get the node ID, we'll get the input and the config from our context. Given that that context will generally store that, we'll create the definition from, right, by now I think you guys know it, node definitions config.types or type, and then if node definition will return success is false and there'll be an error which is unknown node type config, not this. What's happening? Config, what is happening? Dot type. Yeah, that's good. If definition is not found, that's there. Now we'll have different sort of switch statements in the basis of like what type or category of node it is. So if let's say definition dot category, this is, let's say, case as trigger node. So for trigger node, we need a different workflow execution implementation. So if it is a trigger node, we'll create await this dot execute trigger execute trigger node, we'll give it config and give it input, right? So for trigger node, we have this. Now since we have this, we need to create an implementation of trigger nodes as well. Now for trigger node, that is basically our entry point to the world of all of, writing this implementation and everything. So we'll create a private, I should probably do a catch as well. And before, so that the error goes away. Error, I think any, I guess. Yeah, we'll implement this later, but let's create this private async execute trigger node. This is a method. It will take config as record of string comma any, and it will take an input also of type any. And actually I'll return as well. So after here, it should also return me a promise of node execution not context result. Yeah, that is good, I think. Let's go over here. Yeah, and I think this should be under this bracket because we were already in this promise method, so we can't write there, right? So yeah, over here inside this promise, let's write our code, which is constant result equals to await. Actually, wait, this is a trigger node. We don't do any manipulation, anything in this. So we can just return, success has true. This is like that lazy guy who gets success without doing anything. Output is same as input, or you can just give certain values like triggered at, you can give it new date to string, YSO string, and then you can give it config as config, right? Simple method, not much inside it. Yeah, so this is for the trigger type. Let's put another type up here. Let's give it a case of AI. So there can be a sort of AI node as well. So in case of AI, we want to return await this dot execute AI node. What happened? Sure. I accidentally switched the page. This should be, oh, I accidentally closed the page, which is up here. Sorry. Config input. Similar sort of inputs, right? We will create another node up here. Actually, since I want double implementation, let's why not I do it execute AI node type, and let me create the implementation here. Async execute AI node type config record again string comma any comma input as any, and what it will return is promise. I could have maybe created some sort of interface as well, but yeah, I guess this is fine. Don't really need this. Yeah, this is our implementation. So for this, let's do constant result equals to await this dot execute AI node. Now this will be a sub method which will take the config dot type, which is like the type of node. We can have three different types of nodes, right? We can have this prompt generation, we can have this, I forgot, content analyzer, we can have a chatbot. So these three or four types of node. So we'll have to give it a type, config, and input. So we want to branch out other variables in this method, so that's why we'll create a sub method. We'll go to the implementation in a while, but yeah, return success can be true, and then output can be result, just same as what we do in general. Let's add other cases as well, and then we'll go in the AI node. So the case here can be action types. So return await this dot execute action node config input, and let's give it other also. We'll be moving around so much. So logic type return await this dot execute logic node config input. Right, and after the switch case, actually we need a default case as well. So default case can be return our success can be false, and error can be unsupported action type or node type, node category, and then we can have it here as definition dot category. Right, so this is there, and in catch block also you can catch it, and if there is some error, we'll return success as false, and the error statement like we'll give it error dot message, or we'll give execution failed if message is not populating up here, right? So our generic method is done. We need to create three basic nodes like execute node and execute logic node. So let's actually let's keep this action nodes and logic node for later. Let's start from AI node. So for AI node, we already created this. We need to create this execute AI node method. So let's write this. So private async execute AI node. This method will be there. Type will be string, and then we'll have config as record of string comma any, and then we'll have input as any. What we'll return is again promise of any. So we'll pass that later. We'll have normally any returning. So we'll create a try catch because we'll have to make an API call to the OpenAI server somewhere, because this is an AI node. We need to make sure we give it some sort of prompt and then call the AI API of whichever service you are having, right? So you can configure Gemini service as well. I'll tell you where to do that. We'll create an API. We have not touched this API folder yet, right? We have this execute method. This is for executing this AI nodes, right? So we'll come up here. We'll create a basic API call. So response equals to await fetch. Actually, let me write it like this: await fetch, and then let's have slash API slash AI slash execute. And this is exactly why I created that route. Let's give it some body, which can be method as post. Then we can have headers as content content type of application slash JSON, and then body we can have as json.stringify, and let's give it type config and input, right? This will be our response. So if not response dot okay, that means there is some sort of failure. We'll do constant error equals to await response dot json, and if there is error we'll throw new error, and that will be error dot error or AI execution failed, right? And if there is no error, we'll return this await response.json, right? And since we created a try, we'll create a catch with error as any, and we'll do throw new error as error dot message or fail to execute AI node. Right, so this is our basic implementation of AI executor. Now we need to make this these 3 or 4 different types of if statement based on the type of node in the slash AI slash execute method. So in the API call, we'll need to implement this sort of dependency on what the user input is, and depending on that, we'll have to change the prompt, right? So now we have two things, like two sort of connectors left here. One is action and logic type, and then we have to implement the API. So let's do that. So before creating the other two types of node, like action node and logic node, let's go ahead and write this API, I guess, because otherwise we lose the context and then it's very hard to get back the context. So let's go into the execute route, and inside it, let's create a file called route.ts. And inside this, so for a Next.js routing, we need import next request, next response, that has to be from next slash server, and we'll import Azure OpenAI, which will be from OpenAI, right? So we need an API right here. So we'll create a post API, which will be a export async function post, and this will take a request, and that will be next request. We'll put a try and catch up here. So try and catch error and error, I guess. Any, we'll handle the error handling in a while, and let's get the values from here. Type I think config, and input from here, which will be await request.json, and post that let's actually validate if not process.env. OpenAI deployment, I guess, API key, OpenAI API key, or not process.env. I guess I'll copy out this, and then I'll use this same Azure OpenAI underscore endpoint or dot Azure OpenAI underscore deployment ID. Right. After this, if any of these is not there, in that case we'll return the next response dot JSON, and out here we'll give error, which will be Azure OpenAI credentials not configured, add them, something like that. And status we can give as, actually let's give status, let's give 500, because the credentials are not there. Now if they are there, so OpenAI can be new Azure OpenAI, and then let's pass all the parameters. API key can be Azure OpenAI API key, endpoint can be Azure OpenAI endpoint, and then deployment, I don't think deployment ID we need here. app version, app or API version. API version we'll need. Let's take 2024 08-01 and the preview version of that. So you can check the version or whichever is the new version from the docs, I guess, right? And you can give respectively. OpenAI we have created constant deployment ID. Obviously, we'll get deployment ID as process.env.azure deployment ID, and we'll get the result from here. Now, okay, now we have certain different types of requests that could be there, right? So we'll do switch on the type of request that is there, right? So if the type is AI text generation, AI text generator, right? Ideally, we could have added them as enum, which would have been better. So we'll return await and then execute text generator. We'll give it config, input, OpenAI, and deployment ID. And we'll break it. And the next case would be AI analyzer. And then for this also we'll create execute analyzer config input OpenAI deployment ID, right? Come back here, and there'll be two more cases. One more case would be AI chatbot. Again, result equals await execute chatbot config input OpenAI deployment ID. Similar cadence. Break case. Last one will be AI data extractor, right? This will be again result await execute data extractor config import OpenAI deployment. Break again. Can put a default as well, which can just return next response and .json. Simple status of error of unknown node AI type, which can be here as type, and up here we can just give a comma and status can go as 500 or 400, I guess, right? At the end of all of that, return next response dot json, and response can be result. Whatever the result is, we can just return that. In the error, let's do a console.log of AI execution error, and then let's just give it the error. Why is there? Oh, my bad. Would be a comma. Console log error details, and in the details, let's give a schema message as error message, and then stack can be error stack, then status can be error status, and then response can be error response, right? We need to now make a couple of methods. Wait, let's send next response as well. I'll actually do one simple thing. I'll take the next response from here because it's very hard to create this next response. I wish there was some easy way to copy or something, but let's put the error message as error.message for AI execution fail, and let's give it the details as error.status, or if that is there, then we make it status is equal to error.status. Otherwise, we just get it undefined. Actually, let's go undefined. Right. Okay. So the first node up here, which is AI execute text generator. Let's create the method for that. These are gonna be simple methods which will like sub methods. Async function execute text generator. Your config as any, input as any. Then you have OpenAI as your OpenAI. Then you have deployment ID as string. So classic boilerplate stuff, and you can just do let prompt temperature and max tokens. I guess max tokens they come from config. Prompt we can just replace template variables. Now, why we are writing this method? I wanted to write this method later, but I'll write it here only. So there's a prompt and there's input, right? So why I want to change sort of, or basically create this method is this replace template variable. This is required to pass the data from one node to another. So let's say the last node is having some data, you want to pass that out to the next node. So basically you want to have some placeholders out there. You want to replace that placeholder with the outputs of the last node. So the last node's output, you'll save it somewhere, pass it to the next node, and you need to parse that. So this is for parsing that previous node. Like in the example which I just gave in the starting, we had this input dot generated text, which we were using in curly braces or something. It's the same thing right here. So we create a helper method right here. We can create this in the other method also, utils class, but I think here is fine as well. So if not of text or type of text is not equals to string, return text. If we'll create the result. So if the text is not string, then we'll result replace. In the replace, I actually created this regex kind of thing. So we want to replace double curly braces. So if we create that in regex, that this is the format. So double curly braces, you remove that and you remove that input if the type of input is object. In that case, you remove the JSON dot stringify of input. Otherwise, you do string of input. Right, so you replace this input variable in the prompt by this, right? So result equals to result dot replace and use this variable again. So I have another regex which is right here. So this is the other regex which I have. What you can do is you can add another string path as string. This you can add a callback method which will run for each character, and then this will help you like replace your curly braces with the this particular field inside that, I guess, the output from the last node. So you'll take that, you'll iterate from all of the fields. So path dot split, and you split it from dot. So you got all the fields, and then value can be input, right? So for constant of field in fields, field of fields of fields, and if value is there and the type of value is equals to object and field is in value, in that case value becomes value of field. Otherwise you return the match, right? So that is one thing, and then you return type of value if that is equals to object. You return json.stringify of value. If not, then you return string of value. Right, so this will be the method. At the end you return the result. So this will basically remove from your text, it will remove the double quotated, the double brackets and the input variable and give you the accurate results, like place the placeholder instead of that. So this is where we are doing that. So we'll do console.log and we'll put one executing text generation generator with, and let's give it prompt and also that we know in console log. So we put the prompt here. Actually, JSON we can just do deployment ID from a prompt. We can just small that out so that we don't have that many sub string. Let's just print out the 50 characters of it. Right, so we print that out, then constant completion. So completion will be like getting the result from the API. So OpenAI.chat completion create. Inside it, give model as deployment ID. Then you give as message as array of. So the role first can be user, and then content can be prompt. Temperature we can give it, either you give us the temperature from the UI, then we can tweak that, or we can just keep it default as 0.7. And I hope you guys know what temperature does, because if not, then you can like go over it. Temperature basically means how much you want to innovate the response. If you want to stick to the topic, that's it. Otherwise, so we'll get the completion, and at the end we'll give generated text as completion dot choices 0 dot message dot content. Using LangChain, it could have been a lot easier because you can just do this human message or something, but yeah, we don't have that. It's a simple API call. We should not use framework until it's like being used at a lot of places. Yeah, so the first method is done. It will get the completion, and yeah, it will give you the result. So that's one. I think we can just try it out at once, I guess, everything, because we have to go back and write implementation of each of them. So we can try out each of them and tweak them if there is something error with the execute analyzer. Yep. Again, config any comma input any comma OpenAI is your OpenAI, and then you give deployment ID as string. Right? Similar cadence, man. Like exactly similar. You actually constant. You get text and analysis type from config. Right? Now text will go as replace input variable text comma input, similar stuff. Then let system prompt, you can have a system prompt over here, right? So the switch case, there are multiple options inside the I'll actually urge you guys to go back to the video where we created this node definitions. In this we have data extractors, and all of this would have different fields inside that. Please make sure when you're trying to copy it out, you remember which all fields are there, because based on that the switch statement is coming. So analysis type can be a case, can be of sentiment analysis, right? So switch case actually happens like this. So oops. So inside sentiment, the system prompt will be analyze the sentiment of the following text, respond with positive, negative, or neutral, followed by a confidence score. Right? You can add better algorithms in it if you want, but like for me, this works. So I'm good. So confidence score, I think I can give it 0 to 1 range, and brief explanation. this works, right? System prompt is done. What other thing we can do? Like this is system for prompt for this. You can have another case which is keywords. So if you want to extract keyword analysis, you can just do system prompt and you can just say extract the most important keywords and phrases from the following text, return them as a JSON array. Please don't make any typos like I have made up here, right? Let's break again. We can have another case which will be like summary. So the system prompt is basically provide a concise summary of the following text into 3 sentences, right? Break. We can have a default one also, but I'm not in mood. Constant completion can be await OpenAI dot chat dot completion dot completions dot create, and then it can have model deployment ID. Messages will have role as system, content as system prompt, role as user, content as text. So we had a system prompt, we have a user prompt, and one thing else which you can give is temperature as actually 0.3. Let's get right. Whatever it will be here, we'll return as analysis type, and then we'll return as result as completion dot versus dot 0 dot message dot content, like the standard answer. Usage also, we can just give usage, right? So I think this is the second method done. Let's go on and spring out our last one as well. Actually, we have two more left. So let's go and create the function of execute chatbot as well. Or should we, let's before creating these, let's actually test them out, man. Then otherwise the implementation will be a lot bigger. Right, so we have created the basic ones, just two methods left. So these nodes should be working. Side page, we created workflow executor, and in workflow executor we created all of our nodes and execute AI node. For that we created the AI node method, right? Up here the API call. So now what we have to do is basically inside our page, yeah, we have to complete the implementation of our page now. So first most important thing will be find trigger nodes. So these will be the nodes with no incoming edges, right? So incoming edges. So this is sort of like a graph algorithm now. You'll start from the trigger node, you need to traverse, right? There can be fells, edges and all. So you can have one node connecting multiple edges. So that all is possible. Like you can have it somewhat like this. Let me just show you. If we bring it here, this is a webhook. Let me close this down. This is AI generator. We create content analyzer and then AI generator. What's happening? I'm not sure. I guess there might be some bug. Yeah. So I can create this here. I can also create this here. So this can trigger both the workflows. So right, you can have one node connecting a couple of workflows. So you need to start from one node and make sure the nodes go as a graph sort of way, right? So you do constant as trigger nodes, which will be nodes dot filter out, and for each node you filter out using not edges dot some edge, where edge dot target is equals to node dot id. right? So that is basically the trigger node. If trigger nodes total length is equals to 0, in that case we add alert, add a trigger node to start the flow. I guess that will be the start of flow, and set is executing can be false in that case, and we'll return. So if there are no trigger nodes, we don't wanna we don't wanna start. So nodes like for each node again. So now for each node, what we want to do is basically we want to update the node with the execution, right? So node ID, and we'll give it some parameters. So output is undefined now, error is also undefined now, and is executing is false right now. So at the very beginning, each node is like reset. So we can keep it here that we are reset the nodes, right? That's right here. And now what we have to do is basically execute the node in order. So you want to execute the node in order. Let me bring it here. So nodes dot, what we'll do actually is constant executed nodes equals to new set string. So we'll create a set based on the node ID of node, right? So constant node outputs, that can be record string dot any, and that can have, right? So constant execute node chain. This will be a async method taking up your node ID as string, your input as any, and this can be null, right? So you can have a null also, basically the placeholder or something. If executing nodes dot length, no, sorry, if executing nodes dot has node ID, will return. So if this node is already getting executed, we don't want to put more pressure on this. So we are done with that. Constant node equals to node dot find, and equals to and dot id equals to node id. If not node, that case we return it. Executed nodes dot add node id, update node id is executing will be true, and error will be undefined, right? So that's there. Yeah, so after this, let's open up a try and catch any simple. In try catch, let's write constant result. This will be await executor dot execute node. You just have to call the node, give it the parameters node.id, input. Config can be node.data.config, or it can be an empty array. Previous nodes can be node outputs, right? So there we go. So if result.success, if the output from our executor is basically the success, that case will update the node, not updated node, update node, node ID output will be result.output is executing as false, right? And this, after this is done, we'll do node outputs of node ID. This will be result.output, constant connected edges dot filter. We are finding any edges which is connected to the current node. So we execute one particular node and then we move to the connecting edges. So edge, where edge dot source is equals to node ID. So any edge which has the source as node ID, like basically that is the target node. So for constant edge for of connected edges, await execute node chain. So you'll give the edge dot target and result dot output. Actually, one second. I changed a bracket. So all of this would come inside if this result is a success, right? Why is not indenting? Anyways, let's. If this is not, I don't know why it is not indenting, but yeah, all of this. Let me indent it. All of this would work only if the root node execution pass. So if intermediary node execution failed, we don't want the subsequent nodes to be executed still. Once execution fails, we want every associated node execution also fail. So yeah, if that is there, so we'll update the node with node ID, and then we'll give it error of result dot error and is executing as false, right? So that's there. And in the catch, let's handle our pretty error handling. Update node ID. Error can be error dot message, or it can be executing failed, and then we can have is executing as false. Okay. And for the trigger node of trigger nodes, now what we want to do is, let's say there is a workflow with multiple triggers. We want to execute all of the triggers. So for that also we'll call the execute node chain, and we'll keep the trigger node dot id as well. Also, this will be the start of flow from here only. So yeah, and set is executing as false. So once everything is complete and everything is settled down, we set is executing as false. So let's give all of this to our sidebar. Let's give it on execute as execute workflow, and for is executing, let's give it is executing. Sidebar is done. Let's open up a sidebar. Let's see what if there is something left there. So in the sidebar, we have already done on executing and everything. I don't think there's anything done remaining. Let's see. Execute node chain equals to no. Oh, there should be one equal. Page.tsx. Where's the page gone? Yep. Very tired, but yeah, that's fine. Yep, let's put execute. Let's put AI generator. Let's connect these. Let's run this. Still waiting on the result, man. Let me try opening up the terminal. There seems to be some error. Let me check. Let me inspect the elements as well. Console. Trigger node is not defined at. There is supposedly a trigger node which is not defined. This could be. I think it will be constant trigger node. Anyways, let's refresh it again. Let's check it out. Execute. Updated node is not defined. 95.7. 95 update node. Okay, my bad. Refresh. The worst part is that we have to connect these stupid things. Execute. Okay. Yeah. First node executed correctly. Second node, I know. This is text replacement in route 152. So route 152, we need to make it let text maybe. What the hell? Let me try it again. 1 second. Execute. This should not be let. Also, why is it coming to execute analyzer? It should not be coming to execute analyzer, because I mean we have break functions up here. If there is text generator used, should not go anywhere other than that. Oh, cannot. My bad. Let me just change that. inside text analyzer. Show me this. Yeah, I need to put this let so that it can be reassigned. What? Okay, man, come on, hard refresh. What's happening? We need to close off the server, I guess. Yeah, let's run the server again. Let's see. Okay, trigger AI agent text generator. Let's move it. Done. Okay. There's some error, but this says that credentials not configured. Okay, let's check that. Uh, Configured this not yeah. We forgot to make it this not. Let's go again. Let's execute. What the? Come on. Hmm. Process .env dot. This should be the prefix for almost all of them. Try again. Unsupported data type. Now, where's the error in this? Let me check the terminal. It says the error is in await. Let's check that. Route 61. Route 61. No, this is not 125. 125. Yes. I think I know. This should be messages. Execute again. Okay, unrecognized argument max tokens. I think it will be max token. No, this will be max tokens and t small. That's the API. Come on. Unexpected end of JSON output. Let me check the error. I think I understand. We need to return it outside the switch statement. We were returning it from inside the switch statement. So this is the method post request. Inside the switch method, you are returning the response. Yeah, it executed perfectly. So now we got our here. So we can tweak the prompt and everything. You guys can tweak that yourself. But in general, like overall, the system is done. Right, let's try this also, content analyzer. And let's also make sure that we are able to give the input here, input dot generated text, right? Let's put this and over here with sad emotions, save configuration, and here input dot generated text. I hope it saves, man. Okay. Yeah, it saves. We just have to click the save configuration. Okay, let's execute it. So this one would get executed and this one also got executed. Let's see. Sentiment neutral, but I don't know why it gives here neutral, but 0.85 is the confidence score, and decision to sense of regret, appreciation of opportunities of a company, while there are element of sadness and gratitude. Yeah, professional email with sad emotions. Yeah, so these two works we need to add for chatbot and data extraction and the action nodes. So good progress. If you want to stop down the video here and complete all of these on your own, that's a valid argument as well. You can do that, but if you want to see the implementation, let's continue. Okay, so let's go back to our main screen. Now we need to create a couple more nodes, which is execute analyzer we have done, text generation we have done, chatbot and data extraction is left. So for chatbot, I think for chatbot it will be async function execute chatbot config any input any OpenAI Azure OpenAI deployment ID can be Spring, right? And over here we'll take the let system prompt, user message, and personality as config System prompt, we'll have to use replace template variable system prompt from input. So any input that we get, we'll have to replace that, right? So user message also we'll have to replace template variable user message, and then from input, and constant personality prompts can be professional. So again, check our node definitions. There are three modes which we have written: respond in a professional and formal manner, and then we have friendly, which is respond in a warm, friendly, and conversational manner. Concise can be respond with brief to the point answers. Constant full system prompt will be system prompt /n/n dollar. Personality prompts, personality as key of type of personality prompts, or just leave empty, right? Constant completion. Await, let me just get the same thing from here. I'm very tired to write all of this again and again. So here, messages, deployment ID, messages have full system prompt, and the text can be user message. Temperature can be 0.7, and again return I can get from here. So from return I'll get here, which is response is our completion choice message content. Let's usage, actually let's get personality as well, right? So yeah, last method, which is export for async function of execute data extractor config. Actually I'll copy now. I am not at all gonna write anything. If you guys want me to code along, I mean, this is pretty straightforward, man. Like, come on. Let text schema. This will be config text again. Let me just get it from here only. So text schema, right? Constant system prompt extract information from the text according to the schema return only a valid JSON object. Single schema with no additional text or explanation. Cool. Let's get our completion again. So we'll get it here and we'll paste it down here. So completion can again be create model. This can be system prompt. This can be text. Temperature can be 0.1. No innovations required. Constant extracted data can be completion dot choices 0 dot message get content. Now let's try and parse it out, because the parsing of variable will be very hard. So JSON dot parse extracted data, or let's give it empty array, return extracted data as parsed, then schema then usage as completion dot usage. Right, if this try does not work, then in the catch block we'll take e and we'll return extracted data as extracted data, I think, because in this case we are not able to parse it down, but we can still replace it. Can replace the schema. Usage can be this. I need a bracket as well, which can be this, and after this we can add a not saying could not parse JSON returning raw text. Right, so that can be here. This. Did I miss one? Sketch is ending here. Return is ending here. Try is ending here. I'm missing one bracket. Alrighty. Where does this bracket end? Okay, where does this end? Okay, we have written all of that inside. What is this inside? Function. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, that works. So all our methods are ready. Let's try them out once. So chatbot can go up here, and this was getting, actually we'll add chatbot directly from, let's bring it here. Let's directly add it here, and in the trigger your helpful assistant say hi to the YouTube channel. Let's save the configuration. Let's try it out. Let's execute. This works. Come on. This works as well. Greeting to all the viewers engaging in, yeah, right. That works. Data extractor. Oh, come on. In this structured text, we can have, it was the output here, response, right? So we can have input dot response. Yeah. Right, let's try this out now. So all our AI nodes will be ready. All we'll have is sending email, doing this HTTP request, which I might skip or I might do. I'm not that sure. Let's see. So extracted data schema is, oh, we didn't give it. Oh, schema could be greetings, I think. I'm not sure. This will work. The AI request is there. You'll just have to tweak the prompt a little bit. So I'm not much skeptical of it. Maybe you guys can try and let me know. Yeah, so extracted data in greetings, it gave us hello and whatever was around the extracted data. So all these nodes run. Schedule node also would run every 5 minutes. Every, can we do it seconds? Oh, yeah, so schedule node will run again. Just add it here, execute, and there you go, right? Schedule node will actually, if we do execute, it will keep on running for a long time, because until this schedule time comes, it will just keep on waiting, right? So yeah. Anyways, let's see what else is left. I don't know if I'll be implementing the other remaining ones or not, but let me just see. Let's quickly implement our other types of node. I won't be testing them out, so you do test them out and tell me in the comment section below if it works or not. But yeah, let's write execute action node. Implementation config will be record string comma any, and input can be any, right? So, and the response will be promise, and the standard one, which is node execution result. Switch case of config.type, constant of, there can be HTTP request, constant this is case, and return await this dot execute HTTP request, config input, right? Case data transform, and this will be return await this dot execute data transform config input, and the other one will be case send email. This will be return await this dot execute send email config dot input, and the default one would be return success uh, success as false error unknown action node type of config dot type, right? We can write private async execute HTTP request. This will take config of record of string comma any, and this will take input as any, and this will return again promise of next response result. Now this is gonna be a homework for you guys, just like to be implemented. I'll push down the final code with the implementation. If you guys make sure that I reach 100 comments, I'll push this code on my GitHub repository and make the repo open source. So do comment. But yeah, simple HTTP request, you create another file over here. Let's say in API other than AI, you create one file, something like new folder HTTP proxy or something, and write the implementation of this there. So that will be this node. So there'll be a little bit of implementation. Then you will have data transform. So similar way. So private execute data transform, and then put your configs and just write this method as well. So I don't think I'll be proceeding and writing all of these methods. However, you guys can take this as an assignment and make sure you guys write it down or create them, and I'll push down the completed code on a GitHub repository so you guys can verify my implementation and your implementation. So there is a HTTP request, then there's gonna be one with data transform, so execute data transform, and then there has to be one more which is like, this is not that, this will be like send email, execute send email. Each of them will have the same implementation and you need to do somewhat similar, like that's it. And for the last one, which is logic node, sorry, for the last one, which is logic node, you can also do async execute logic node. This I can do the implementation. So the config will be record string and any, but I hope you guys got the intent, like HTTP request, data transform, and send email. You need to implement these three. So for logic nodes, you already have the config there, and then the input will be any, and then over here promise next request execution result, sorry, and yep, you go. Switch of config dot type can have catch as if else, return this dot execute if else config and input, and there'll be case of delay, return this dot execute delay config dot input. Default, I mean, I'm so tired of all these defaults. You have to do nothing and just return this stupid statement, but yeah, best codes have some sort of boilerplate, but maybe my code is not that bad. Logic node of type config dot type, right? Anyways, so private execute if else, in here config record string comma any, and input any, right? try constant condition operator, get the config let result equals to false. If operator is equals to JavaScript, constant evaluate function equals to new function input condition result equals to evaluate function input, right? And return statement success will be true. Output will be condition result branch result. If there is this result, so it will be true or it will be false. And input, catch block will have error as any, return again same thing, which is success as false, and error as error dot message or condition evaluation failed. I'll show you how this works actually. There's not much issue in that. Just let's create one last function which is gonna be execute delay, which will be giving some time delay, right? So record string comma any. Oh my god, I've written this so many times. I'm so fast right now. Promise next response result. Yep. Constant duration unit equals to config constant ms equals to unit equals to seconds. Parse int will do duration into 1000 or parse int duration. Await new promise resolve set timeout resolve, right? We can just return, and there's no exception handling is this in this because this is inbuilt function, so there won't be any exception ever until unless there is some system failure, and in that case we don't have a result to be given. Right, so we have all our nodes ready, and I think this should be it for the project, I guess. Let's do our final try. Three methods you guys have to complete: send email, data transform, and HTTP request. These three things you guys have to complete. Wherever your imagination takes you. If I get 100 comments on the video, not mine and yours included though, only yours, I'll release the repo with completed method and everything. So there might be a little bit bugs here in some utility. I'll test that and release the repo. I'll anyway release it, like they obviously I won't put it to condition, but yeah. Anyways, let's do one final testing. Let's do some nodes. So if else node, let's put that. So give it something, man. And if else, if condition can be. Okay. Should not be this condition. Let's refresh it. I think there are a lot of nodes, right? So yeah, there are a lot of nodes. So if we connect this, yeah, if input value is greater than 10, yep, save configuration. So it will ask you maybe for input value or something. I don't know. If 5, uh, if 5 is greater than 10, so in that case, it'll go from let's do it 15, so otherwise it won't run. So this is if else condition. Delay we can put up here. So after delay would be 500 millisecond. Let's put a text generation out here. So this can be another test. Come on, text generation, write a professional, write a prompt asking people to subscribe. Save configuration. Let's do content analyzer. Put it down here. Analyze. Oops. Let's use the placeholder. Generated text. Save configuration. Yep. Last node, AI chatbot. Oops, that was right. Ask audience to subscribe to YouTube channel, and there's gonna be the final execute before we wrap up the project. If else work, delay of 5 seconds. Come on, done. Text generation, let's go. Done, done, and done. Let's do a final verification. Sure, here's a prompt to whatever, subscribe, join our community, whatever. If you guys can't see it, please zoom it. I'll zoom it. I also, yeah. So we have that here. Then we have our content analyzer, which says that positive 0.98. The text is highly encouraging, enthusiastic to subscribe. And here we are asking to subscribe. But yeah, that's it. My throat's all gone. If you like the video, please, 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 please subscribe. It went hours. There were hours that went into making this video. This is my first long form content, and if you guys want more such content, then please let me know. I'll push the repo to GitHub if I get 100 comments on this video. I'm planning to release it soon. So thanks for watching.